What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're gonna be reacting to King Von. David is worse than King Von. But before we get right into the video, subscribe, comment. Love y'all. Let's get right into the video.
Has sprung up regarding David's horrendous allegations and criminal charges. And it started off with the conversation on X, where this person tweeted, "David is one of the rare instances I believe you truly cannot separate the art from the artist, due to his deplorable behavior bleeding directly into the art he was making. Anyone listening to a David song?"
Didn't he, I'm not trying to be, this is YouTube, but didn't he, like, cut a skin out? Not like a skin out, but I hope y'all know what I mean. Like, didn't he cut the insides, her insides? I think that, someone said that he cut her insides, too.
Song now is just as sick. I think this
People thought someone helped him, but it was he did this all on his own. I still don't believe I don't know, bro. I don't know what's happening. I don't care. I just don't care. But dude, I don't know who to believe. I don't believe nobody. I don't believe David, the cops, nobody. I just wait until see what happens. You know, I wait until I see what happens.
is pushing it a little bit too far, saying, "Oh, you're just as sick as this guy who is willing to not only engage in crime, but bring this chick into his life and also engage with her in a physical manner and then kill her and then chop up the bot." No, let's be real here. And this is coming from somebody that enjoyed the Here With Me project pre-2025. I didn't listen to David before that. And even now, I am a bit sick. I cannot listen to his music. I'm not sick, like as in I'm listening. I tried to turn it on. I was like, this cannot be. And I cannot listen to it. It's too tied to this. The way I see the guy, he's like a twisted weirdo now, because I didn't really have much of an identity of David when I listened to his music. So I didn't really know who he was, what his background was. I was like, yo, this music is hitting. And now that I know who he is, I know what he was involved with, it just rubs me the wrong way to listen to it. It kind of makes me like sick to my stomach. However,
nah, he right though. It explains everything about what she did, what he did to her. He's right.
I can listen to R. Kelly. So I don't know what it is. And this is just me giving a raw physical response to the music, not trying to rationalize it whatsoever. But I did quote tweet this, and I said King Von's behavior was bleeding directly into the art he was making as well, because that seems to be the argument that this individual was making. And a lot of artists, that's why we think they're quote unquote real, is because what they were doing bled into the music, or the music was a representation of what they were doing or feeling. So that's why I don't think that argument holds up. Now, what I said was, what makes David significantly worse is that this guy's crimes were against a child, allegedly drugging the child, because it's inconclusive as of now, but they're saying that there was MDMA, potentially methamphetamine in the girl's system. So this guy's doing party drugs with her, and who knows what other drugs. Murdering that child, murdering by stabbing too. So there's levels to it, right? Like, oh no, murder is murder. Yeah, but there's painful murder. There is dropping, I don't know, some arsenic in her, like Yvonne Strahovski. What character was she playing on that show? Was it? Yeah, it was Dexter that she was on. Well, she was on a couple. She was also on Chuck, which is a good show. You should watch that. We're getting a little bit too ahead of ourselves here. And that bleeding into the music. Yeah, so I'm saying if he poisoned her, if he shot her, and then
I heard of Chuck. That show is definitely no, but I heard of it a lot, especially when I was like in my teenager, like 13-year-olds, 14-year-old years.
And stabbing her close range, clearly the stabbing is the worst part. And that bleeding into the music, especially when you talk about his tour, when he has a bunch of caskets getting carried around. Now, granted, preparation for tour takes months, so he could have had these caskets ready before the murder happened, but he murdered her on April 25th, like late April. His tour didn't start until September, because when this all got exposed with her body, it was September. So it makes perfect sense for the timeline for him to say, hey guys, I want caskets and roses as if we're doing a funeral at my shows. And then I said, we've never seen this level of twisted crime from an artist that was successful at his level. And a couple of people, somebody said this, which I do think was a good attempt. He said, Vaughn died at 26. He's been on police radar for more than 10 years before his death. He had child victim 99%. Just say gang-related death and terror isn't as bad as exploitation of a minor by an adult. Okay, gang-related death and terror isn't as bad as exploitation of a minor by adult. Okay, we said that. Now what? Yeah, no, what the hell? Tuca was 14 when he died from that war. He's still mocked today. Yes, that is very true. But it's also kind of like if you were a kid and you were watching Zoe 101, right? And you were like, man, Zoe's so hot. Or if you were a kid and you were watching iCarly and you were like, man, iCarly was really cute. Or Sam from iCarly was really cute. If you're an adult and you're saying that you thought they were really cute, you're referencing that time of your life. You're not saying, well, when she was this age, she was really cute. You know what I'm saying there? So I think, albeit it is still disrespectful, but they are remembering Tuca from the context of when they were the same age as him. Not, oh, this is some 14-year-old kid that we just caught a body for today at the age of 26, and we're mocking him. So that is a distinction to be made. Granted, I do think King Von is one of the more savage individuals that came out of Chicago because he carried it outside with him after he left and after he made money. I think this is a very good comparison we can make because for King Von, we got to say that, number one, he was born into this, right? He was, the worst thing you could say he did is he killed a girl. And before people are like, man, you know, it's like a girl versus a boy, like double standards. Okay, come here. Take the baby, put it on your shoulder. We'll pat you on your back so you can burp and say, oh my God, double standards aren't. Yeah, we get it. All right. Yeah, it is what it is.
We
yes,
get it, bro.
Him killing a girl is worse than
we get it, bro. We get it.
Him killing a boy. Okay. All right. Now we can move past that. But that person was beefing with him. I think it was like KTS Vaughn or something like that. I really didn't like looking into that gang era too much. I did enjoy the music that came out of it, though. So you have King Von, caught a bunch of bodies, but all these bodies were in the same age range. They were individuals that he had beef with. They were killed via gun, and he did go online and flex about it, but once he got out of there, he still carried the same mentality. For example, I think there was an attempted murder or shooting that happened in Atlanta with King Von and Lil Durk that got swept under the rug that they were both involved in. And of course, the incident that happened with him and Quando Rondo, where he ran down on him and then was killed on that night. But he didn't kill anybody after he left. And we look at other people from Chicago, which is, let's look at a Chief Keef. Let's look at, and some people will say, well, Chief Keef never even had a body. Okay, let's look at a Fredo Santana or a Lil Reese. Like, these people, they most likely had a body or two. Who knows? Once they got out of that environment and they made enough money and they were able to survive, they were not thriving at the level of David. That all stopped. We didn't hear them killing anybody else. We don't even hear about Chief Keef getting arrested anymore. Like, Chief Keef is just living a peaceful life, and he grew up in a chaotic environment. David grew up homeschooled. Now, we don't know what mental issues he may have had, but that's not a justification for anything. And this guy, he may have met Celeste or whatever before he blew up. But regardless, none of these guys had anything regarding the exploitation of a minor chick. So they had some level of morals where they're like, yo, we can't get into that. And even a Lil Durk, for instance, right, who caught a body, you could say, after he blew up. Well, what was the body that he caught? That was revenge, and that was allegedly murder for hire. So he hired someone to get revenge for killing a very close friend of his. You could justify that. You can make sense out of it. It's not something in cold blood. And other than that, he was chilling. And he never gloated about it. Well, he dropped hints here and there, but there were also legal ramifications. What David did is there was almost this enjoyment in killing somebody this person wasn't an op. There was no gang affiliation that this person had. This individual didn't do anything to David other than potentially threatening his future career. But that was bound to happen. Like, what did you think was going to happen? That you were just going to stay with this person forever? And let's say Celeste eventually turns 18. Right? 19, 4 years later, 5 years later. And what? You're going to be in a relationship with that person publicly, and people are going to look back and see what happened anyway. This was going to end no matter what. So if David was, you can't even call it smart. Number one, once he found her age, that was raps. It doesn't matter if you were 17, like 17, 11. That's like a 20. You can't even compare. because 11 is so far and away different from 17. The 6 years doesn't even represent it accurately. One point that I didn't see many people make, though, was the gang aspect. So you could say, like, oh yeah, David was grooming this chick and he brought her around and he was live streaming with her. And that's all true because he took this relationship from online because he was from Texas. So presumably he met her while he was in Texas. She was living in the Inland Empire, which is east of Los Angeles. He moves to Los Angeles and then he meets her in person. So he escalates this to the next level. And some people will say, well, gangs are predatory in the way that they groom younger kids to join. And that is true. And I've actually spoken on that at length previously. And I don't think that's touched on enough. And it's not just like OGs that are in their 30s that are sending people 16 to 20 to do crimes like the Pop Smoke case. That's exactly what happened there. And I think one or two of those guys that killed Pop Smoke is already out and free now. But it's also people within that age range of 16 to 20 that are predatory in recruiting kids that are 10 to 13. And that doesn't get talked about enough. But we understand that's predatory because the idea of a gang is predatory. It's like you're here to cause harm, and we don't want to get into, oh no, gangs were first established. We're talking right now. We're not going back in history. And even then, as violent as a King Von was, or a Lil Durk, or a lot of these other rappers that came from that environment, we didn't even really see allegations of King Von beating on a chick. And we've seen that from rappers that weren't as tough as him. So if he has enough, and we never saw King Von do anything with, or be alleged to have done anything, or get involved with a chick that was below 18. And these are just the simple things, right? But you would think someone that's such a demon, that's such a savage, that is so disgusting, that he would get involved into something like that. So the point is that King Von had a level of moral law that he abided by. Lil Durk as well. David does not have that in any capacity. And I also think that people like King Von and Lil Durk, they knew what they were doing and they understood the consequences of what they were doing, and they weren't going to escape those, or they weren't going to attempt to escape those consequences. And that's exactly what David did the opposite of. He knew what he was doing. There's no way you don't know, especially at David's age group and all the people you see online getting exposed for doing weird stuff and them losing their whole career. And you're doing it so brazenly that you're bringing her on stream, on tours, at shows, at your crib, and this person's missing, and you're doing all of that. And then when the day of reckoning comes, which she probably just dumped the kid dumped him, and you're about to get exposed, and instead of just sitting there and saying, you know what, I'm gonna figure out how to handle this with my lawyer, I'm gonna take the L and take accountability for everything that I have done and how that will be received. No, he decided to take it into his own hands and kill the individual. So yes, David is absolutely, without a doubt, the most twisted, sick, depraved, disgusting savage that we have ever seen in music history. There is nobody that even comes close to compare, especially at his level of fame. Somebody with a gold or platinum record. Let's throw that out there. Yeah, there's nobody that even comes close. And the thing with King Von is a lot of it was narration of what he went through. Like, he didn't fantasize about killing other people. Like, how many... And like there was the whole serial killer narrative that was going around King Von. But a lot of serial killers is somebody fitting a profile. A lot of them couldn't control their anger. And while King Von was an angry person, he knew when to turn it on and when to turn it off. And I do think he had more of a bloodlust than other people in his environment. And I think he would have been into something physical regardless, maybe becoming a fighter or something of that nature, because I do think that he had that in him. He was never a real deal serial killer. And I don't think he thought serial killers were cool. There was never any serial killer imagery. He just thought he was a gangster. Well, he was. With David, he had this obsession with death and blood and homicide, like making a song romantic homicide when he was with the chick. Now, it was long before the killing, but those types of dark, disturbing themes, and then living out those themes, that is twisted. And we cannot compare that to King Von. But let me know what y'all think in the comments. Like and subscribe and hit the notification bell.
That's insane. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Peace out.